Thank you all for joining. My name is Bill, and I will be taking you through freestyle modeling today. A little bit about Boundary Systems before we begin. We are partners with PTC, Autodesk, and eTraj. We are really good when it comes to anything with CAD design and consulting, simulation, managing your data. Here's some companies to your right that we work with. The agenda today, we will start off with basically showing you how to model in Freestyle, and then we will show you how to use that Freestyle mesh to align to your sketch geometry, and then we'll do a little bit of a combination using Freestyle geometry and the Interactive Surface Design tools. So we'll get right into Creo here. The first thing that we need to do is bring in an image, and we're going to use that image as a reference to model with. So if we go to View, Model Display, Images. So right here we have the ability to import an image, and we'll use that image as a reference. We click Import. Once you click Import, you need to select the plane to place your image onto, and now we'll select the front plane. And if I go to my working directory, I can choose the bottle image and open that up. Once I have the bottle in, I can now go to Fit and drag this guy and then resize it. So right now it's at 348. I can type in 250, hit Enter, and now I just resize that image. Then from here, I'll deselect this Fit button and then place the image where I want it. And then from here, I'll click OK and go back to the Modeling tab, and now we'll get into how to model in the Freestyle environment. And if you go back to your Model tab in the ribbon, you'll see in the Surfaces group that we can now click on Freestyle. Okay, and if we click this, and I'm going to, so we can see this more clearly, turn off my datums here. Okay, so you can see now in the dashboard of the Freestyle tool, there's the ability or the option to throw in a primitive. So in this case, to actually sculpt this bottle here, we're going to use the sphere. Okay, so I'll select the sphere and drop that in. And you'll see that we have drag handles to move the sphere, and we also have rotation handles. So I'm going to use this vertical drag handle and move that sketch up, or that sphere up, and then move it to the left here. So I'm really just creating a start point to sculpt from. Okay. And it's also good to note that if I go into my top view now, right, I have the ability to mirror this sphere so that I only have to model one side of the bottle, and that makes it a lot easier and quicker to model. All right, so I'm going to go into my top view, all right, and I'm going to select just that surface, all right, and I'm going to say mirror. I'm going to mirror about that front plane. So over here in the model tree, I can select that front plane as a reference to mirror about, and there we go. Okay. So to further define the shape of this bottle, I'm going to select that surface. Okay, and then you'll also see that once you select your surface, you have the ability to extrude, and you can access that from either the dashboard up here. You'll see that in the Create group we have the Extrude feature. Okay, you can also right-click, and it brings up this menu, and I can also click Extrude here, right? So I'll click Extrude, and what that does is that's basically going to add geometry to your model, okay? And then from here, I'm going to select these two top faces as well, and then right-click and Extrude, right? So you can see that in the beginning here, I'm just kind of trying to rough out the shape. All right. And I might also want to rotate that face a little bit. All right. I'm going to drag a box around this whole loop and move that down. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to define or size the start of my extrude that's going to create this bottle handle. All right. So from here, I'm going to select that face, right click, and extrude. And I want to move this up, rotate that face. So you can see that roughly I'm already starting to get the base of that handle here. All right. We also need to create geometry to start sketching this top part of the bottle handle that we're going to connect. So what we can do is we can select an edge here, and I want to subdivide this mesh. I want to subdivide this mesh through these edges. So I'm going to click this edge here, right click, and say split. And you'll see that that split adds another edge loop right here in green. Okay. And now I can move that edge loop up to here. And now that creates a face at the top here that I'm going to extrude to start forming the top portion of that handle. Rotate that face and move that down. Okay, so once we have that, there's also a tool called Connect that we can use to connect faces of our mesh. And what that does is it will add geometry in between this face and that face. So we'll select that face there and that face, and we're going to come up here in the dashboard, and if we drop down, we'll see that we have Connect and Join. We're going to use Connect, and you can see that we just now connected those faces, and it created geometry and formed the middle portion of that bottle handle. Okay. You might also want to add more geometry to further define the handle as far as placement and matching to your sketch. So I might grab this edge, right click, and say split again to add that edge loop. And now I have more control. I can select either these 2 points or that edge, and I can start to move that back so it can match my sketch. Same thing up here. I can grab that top edge, translate that. So as you guys can see, we're basically sculpting using this subdivision mesh. All right. I'll grab just that edge, pull that down a bit. All right. So we're just about there with our handle. All right. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to further define the shape of this bottle in the front here. Okay. So I'm going to select this front face, and this face here on the side of the bottle. Control select that, and I'm going to use face split. Okay, and I'll use the face split 25%. So you'll see that that now split not only that front face, but that side face as well, because I control selected both those faces. All right. So from here, if I select that face, I can move that in, and you can see that that creates kind of an indentation on that bottle. But that's not exactly the result that we're going for. You want more sharp edges that are going to give it more of a refined look. So I'm going to select that edge there, this edge ring here. Okay, so you'll see the edges that I have selected, and we're going to now use Crease, the Crease feature, which is going to create a hard line using these edges. Okay, so I'm going to right click, and you'll see that down here we have Crease. Okay, so if we select Crease, this time when I go to move that face, right, we have hard edges on those edges that we selected before. Okay. If we select these bottom two faces, we can also flatten out the bottom here. In the dashboard, within this crease group, you'll see that we have two options. We have hard and soft. So right now we have hard selected, but we have a value of 0. If I scale this up a little bit, you'll see that it starts creating a hard edge. And if I pull it all the way over, it's going to completely flatten out that bottom face. Then I can move that up and kind of match where I'm at on my sketch. I'll have to move that over a bit. Okay. Same thing up here. I might want to select these top faces and add a hard edge. I'll bring that down to 75. Then I'll also click on this translation handle and move this back a little bit. So you can see that pretty quickly we started to really get the overall shape of this bottle. Let me select this front edge as well. And all I'm doing is really sculpting by pushing and pulling and trying to match that sketch or that image behind this model as closely as possible. And I'll select that top edge too. You'll see here now that I want to translate this edge in the X direction, but my translation handle is at an angle. It's at about a 45-degree angle. I want that to be 90, right? So if you right-click on the center and you say reposition, that will allow you to reposition your drag handles. Right, and I'll right-click and uncheck that, and now those drag handles are kind of positioned in a better spot for me to move this edge. So I'll select that edge and match that up, and then the same thing here. Okay, so that looks pretty close to me. There's some work to do on this bottle, though. I want to start to define the shape here in this profile more. So if I grab these edges over here, I can move those in. That starts to taper the bottle a little bit, right? I'm going to grab the edge of that handle too. So I want to have kind of a wider, stronger base at the bottom, and then have that taper up and get thinner where my handle is. I'll grab this top edge here, scale that down a bit. Grab that bottom edge. And that's starting to get the shape that I'm going for. That looks pretty good. Okay. I'm going to delete these top faces here. So if I select this top face and that back top face there, I can right click and delete it. All right, and if I click OK and complete this freeform feature, all right, you'll see that it shows up as a freestyle surface with these patches. I can now select it and thicken the bottle as well, right? If you don't get a thicken feature, that's because there's some areas that are kind of tight, so you may have to go back within your mesh and readjust parts of your model. So I'm going to kind of jump ahead a little bit now to show aligning your freestyle meshes to pre-existing sketches. So if you know, for example, that there are some parts of this bottle that you kind of want to parametrically control, you can do that by predefining sketches and basically aligning your surface model to it, right? So right here I have this sketch created on the top part of that handle. I have one here at the mid portion of the handle, and then a lower sketch here, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create another freestyle model. So I have the model that was used to create the bottle, and this time I'm going to drop in another one that we're going to use for the handle. One thing to note too is that if you create a coordinate system, you can create an additional coordinate system to use as a reference to place your primitive model. So in this case, if I just use the coordinate system that we have here, it would bring in a sphere if I selected it right here. If I want to bring in a sphere at this coordinate system, I can go to this operations group, drop-down menu, go to options, move this down. And now if I go over here to reference, I can click and select freestyle, this freestyle coordinate system, click OK. And now when I select my primitive sphere, it's going to drop right in where I want it to start creating this handle. Okay. I want to scale this down because you can see that this sphere is a little bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to box select all of the edges, right click, and we're now in translation mode. We're going to select scale. And then to uniformly scale this sphere, I'm going to hold Control and that translation handle and drop that down. All right. Then I'll move back to translation from scale and kind of move that over a bit. All right. So from here, I'm again going to just create the mirror so I can model one side of the geometry. So I'm going to select that side and mirror and use the front plane to mirror. Okay. I'm going to first start with this top surface. I'm going to select the surface, right click, go into my menu and extrude. Okay. In order to get this face to align correctly to the sketch, I'm first going to have to delete this top surface. So I'll go right click, delete, and then from here I'm going to select the edges that make up this curved surface and align that to the sketch here. Okay. So I'll select that edge, and this right edge here, right click, and then there's the align tool. I'm going to select it. All right. I'm going to align it. Let me first hide that guy, hide that guy, and that. I'm going to align here, so I'm going to select that edge, hold shift, select that edge, hold shift, select that edge, and then click the middle mouse button. Okay, and you can now see that that mesh is now aligned to that sketch. And I'm going to right click that tangency handle and say curvature. All right. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to delete that bottom face. All right. Select that edge, and that edge. Right click and say align. Right click that tangency handle and say curvature. Right. And you might have to come in here and adjust this a little further. I'm going to turn on the middle handle reference sketch, and we are going to select that edge there, this edge, that edge, right click, align, and align to that sketch. Okay? And we'll make this normal. All right? And then I want to further define this handle, so I'll select an edge there, subdivide that with split. Okay, same thing down here. Subdivide that with split. And I'll go into my front view. And now I'll select that guy and move it out a little bit. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and complete that. So you can see that pretty easily. We were able to go in here now and align this second freestyle mesh to the geometry on the bottle and also the sketches. So if I select now and I go into that middle handle sketch, all right, because that freestyle mesh is aligned to that sketch, I can come in here now, and if I just change this dimension in that sketch to, let's say, 20, all right, as that sketch redimensions, regenerates, right, that freestyle mesh also updates with it. Right, and again, I can change that to 35. And that freestyle mesh is now going to expand. Right. Same thing here. I also have a sketch to give me some control over here. On the left side of the middle of the bottle. So I have a left control sketch that I pre-created here. I'm going to go to left control, edit, and now if I want further control, I can take that point and move it. There you go. Sorry, my Creo is trying to keep up with me. So you can see that if you create those sketches and align your freestyle geometry to it, all right, that you can start to really sculpt that out. All right. I'm going to now move on to the freestyle bottle offset. So what I did here, I just wanted to kind of touch upon another way to use that freeform mesh. So right now I have the freestyle mesh hidden, right? If I turn it on, you can see that I basically selected surfaces on the mesh and offset them, or just created, or just kind of extracted those surfaces from the mesh. So if I hide this one, right, you can see that I extracted the surfaces that I wanted to use, and now using other surfacing tools, I can start to define that shape of the bottle. So in some cases, you are also able to, model your freestyle shape, the general shape of the design that you want. And then if you want to define it further using other surfacing tools, you're able to do that, right? So I basically extracted those surfaces, and I used the style tool to kind of connect these surfaces with some splines. Then now I can use the boundary blend, for instance, and start creating patches in the model. So I'll create one there. All right. Okay. So you can see it's pretty easy to extract those faces and start to use that to further define the bottle shape. Okay, so I think that's a good place. Let me go into my polls here, and I want to see if now that you guys have all viewed this Freestyle Freeform sculpting tool, if you think it's something that you want to integrate into your workflow. So let me bring this poll up here for you guys. Okay, so it looks that about 75% of you guys have voted. Okay, 86%. Okay, good. So it looks like more than half of you guys want to integrate this into your current workflow. All right, so I guess I'll open up for questions now about anything that you guys have seen here. Okay. Yeah, I'm not currently seeing any questions. If you guys have any questions, now's the time to type those in. Okay, so the first question that I see is how do you curve a sketch. Okay, so I want to see if this answers your question here. Okay. So yeah, to create a curve sketch, typically you would use an arc or the spline tool, or curves that are within the actual style tool. So if let me go back here. All right, so I have this left control curve. If I edit definition on that, you can see that I used a spline curve to create that curve. You can also use 3-point tangent arcs. Okay, those are just a couple ways to create those curves. All right. The next question is, how does the sketch have to be normal to any plane, or can we create a 3D sketch? Yeah, good question. So you can use 3D sketches. So if you had a sketch that was kind of just arbitrarily placed in space, you are able to sketch to that. Or I should say you are able to link your freestyle mesh to that 3D sketch. Yep. I'll wait a little longer to see if anybody has any more questions. Okay, so excuse me here. So I want to thank you guys for attending this webinar. If you need any further information about the Freeform surfacing tool, feel free to contact me. We have my phone number here at 216-469-9561, extension 308, and then also my email right below that. Thanks again for joining, and feel free to contact me with further questions. Thank you.